Okay, so it was projected before the pandemic that 800 million citizens worldwide will drop out of school or leave school without the necessary literacy skills to have a good job. So they will lack the skills to function, the literacy skills to function in a job. And its estimated global cost is £800 billion a year. This was before the lockdowns. But with the lockdowns, of course, learning was globally disrupted, and there was a great loss in learning. Biggest losses in learning is expected in the Caribbean and in areas around Indonesia. Added to this, we have to understand that we are living in the fourth industrial revolution. So information is now more freely available than any time in human history before. And that means that we must be able not only to read well, but we must be able to find the right information and work with it in a way that makes it possible for us to use it to make better choices and to complete our assignments that we have to do. Okay, so let's quickly look at what it entails. A 20% increase in students that were challenged in the area of literacy development. So it jumped to 584 million, okay, just in 2020. 91% of children was adversely affected in their learning, and 1.6 billion children was out of school in April 2020. So I personally believe that the impact of this, we are still going to see our junior primary kids who were supposed to learn to read, grade R, grade 1, grade 2, up. The training in phonics with the masks, the whole development of the patterns that we need for learning to read was disrupted by what happened. So I think we're going to see some challenges arise in the next few years that we might not even have thought about previously. So all of this comes together to bring us to a place of increased learning poverty. And that is actually what we want to fight. All right. So what is learning? I have to just give you this background so you can understand how our gamified training with the boys worked. So we see learning as the connecting of neurons, developing of neural pathways, and enhancing existing neural networks. So this means there's a lot going on in the brain. And with fMRI scans now, I'm sure you guys have heard about it at the conference somewhere. It's an exciting new understanding and bringing things into perspective of how learning and reading works. So neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself. And this is how we form new neural connections throughout life. And for those of us, I don't want you to raise your hands, those who are already on the other side of 50, don't worry about it, guys. The latest research shows that you are actually producing new neurons up until deep in your 70s. So it's, when I was younger, they always said when you hit 21, 30, it's downhill all the way. That's not the truth. You can continue to learn right through your life. So neuroscience confirms that your brain is changing. Every day when you learn new things, your brain is actually changing. So it's like using a road in, I come from Limpopo. So there we walk in the bush and we make our own little footpaths. So if you continue to use it, it becomes more and more evident where you can walk. But if you don't walk that way, the bush takes over. It's the same with this. The more you use it, the more you apply what you've learned, the easier it becomes to do it. And that's like learning to drive a car, for instance. Okay, that's maybe an easy way to describe it. Connections in the brain become stronger continually, whether we use it or not, depending on which one of the two. And we call that the muscle building part of the brain. So the more you use it, the stronger you become in that specific thing. All right. So over time, this must then become automatic. Now let's just reflect on this when we look at reading. So I heard a little bit of what our previous speaker was saying. I was very intrigued. I'm sorry I couldn't listen to everything. But this is what we're talking about. It is that how we come from decoding to automaticity within the reading process. Okay, and neuroscience shows us how some of these things are actually taking place. through neuroplasticity and retraining and connecting new neurons and developing new neural pathways. Okay, so I'm sure you've heard this as well. I might be going over some things that you already know, but our brains are wired for spoken language. So very quickly, children learn to speak a language, but to decipher the written language, our brain must learn how to transfer sounds to a written cipher that makes meaning when we read it. And that must be taught systematically. It's not something that's just going to happen automatically as somebody grows up. I say for instance, when you take a child to the Olympic Stadium. Yesterday we went and watched, the South African gymnastics competition is also going on at the moment. So we went and watched a little bit of the gymnastics. If I take a gymnast, for instance, to that arena, and I say, everything is here, all the apparatus, go, become an Olympic gymnast. Nothing's going to happen. Isn't it true? They need a coach. They need to be trained systematically. So that's where our teachers must be trained and know exactly what to do. Why is this? From everything that I've just said, you can surmise that reading is a complex, integrated action. There's so many physical components that must play a role in this child learning how to read. And it's difficult to really distinguish between them because they flow together almost like a symphony that an orchestra is playing. Okay. And there's physical, psychological, emotional, educational, all of these aspects play a role. And at any given time, one or more of them will have an influence on the reader's ability. If a child is hungry, don't expect them to read as well as they can. If a child is tired, the same thing. So there are a lot of things that play a role when we get to reading development. So we looked at the fact that reading fluency is a significant key for reading comprehension. When they struggle to read fluently, they are going to be challenged in different ways. One of the ways, for instance, is they need to decipher a jumbled message. So with eye tracking, we found that these students oftentimes don't read rhythmically from left to right as they're reading a passage. I call it the chameleon syndrome. Sometimes the one eye stands still, the other eye goes forward, or they read, and you were mentioning it as well, they read like almost in a staccato and jumping back, So they are sometimes unable to decipher the jumbled message that they receive at the end of the day. Second thing is that reading is not a natural process, and there's a number of references to research that was done on that. And then, of course, we all know that they say if a child is not able to obtain adequate literacy by grade 4 level, sorry for them. And this school wanted to look at the fact that they must help these students to achieve, and so we worked with high school students, grade 8 boys. So how do we develop advanced literacy skills for these boys? We believe that if you look at this is Jean Charles, the last 3 phases of Jean Charles' development of reading skills, we believe it's a continual process. It cannot stop at the end of grade 3 or 4. Reading can and should be developed right through our lives, even when you change to a new assignment, or you change a new job situation, new vocation. And this happens a lot in the time frame that we are living. You need new skills to access the information. You need new strategies to find the right things to complete the assignment that you've been given. And all of this must help you to build a schema of understanding so that you can understand information faster, and that's how we stay ahead of the rest. Okay? I'm going to give you an opportunity for questions at the end if we have time. So getting from a good reader to being visually intelligent, just to take it all together, we cannot stop at getting reading right. We must aim towards visual intelligence. Okay? Visual intelligence is the ability to find, access, and work with and use information. 10 minutes. Oh my goodness. To complete the assignment successfully, I'm going to flip through a few of them quickly, guys. Reading skills are never perfected, and we must increase our capacity to see more, read faster, think smarter, and work harder. So how do we achieve this? And this is the situation. We use the physics of muscle training and muscle memory, because you have to move your eyes. The science of neuromodulation, we want to bring the brain in. within the processes of reading to develop advanced reading and learning for all our students through online systems. I talked about the fact that they were looking at why these boys are not going to university, and they realized that poor reading skills are a major factor. So the challenges was they didn't go to study. The biggest cause of dropout is poor academic literacy rates, not at that school specifically, but that is one of the reasons why kids drop out of school. And you can see that more girls are applying for tertiary study than boys. And they found that literacy is one of the challenges. So the study method was that during the lockdowns, we used a descriptive research design with quantitative research. And we had a group of 160 grade 8 learners. They were all had to complete the placement module, and 44 of them were able to complete this before the cut-off time for our data to be in for the publication. So what did we use to gamify this development of reading skills? We used an app-based system called iBrain Gym, and it's an automated program that evaluates the students and takes them through 15 sessions of games and exercises to develop specific personal outcomes for each student to improve maximum literacy levels for each one of them. We measured the outcomes in 3 factors, and this is also really special because this was developed based on international research of norms and standards for silent reading fluency. So we have the visual processing factor, which take into account the oculomotor or optic motor and perceptual aspects. The cognitive development factor, which not only both of those, we don't only look at the outcome. We don't want to know you read 300 words per minute. We want to know you read, because if you read 300 words per minute at a grade first year level, and you read 300 words per minute at a grade 3 level, the weighting is completely different. So that's why we created the factors. We want to measure both those aspects, the cognitive and the visual processing, and those two together gives us the action, interpret, and understand factor, which gauges against a relative outcome skill level of a grade. All right, I'm running out of time. So there's just the weighting that I already discussed. The metrics of this system use grade level norms and components of fundamental reading skills that was published in 1960 already and reaffirmed in 2019 by Spichtig and her group of researchers. This is just the factors that was used to identify the progress or non-progress of the boys. And this is the structure of the system. As I said, a placement, multi-leveled access, game plans, and the 15 individualized lessons that the students work with, which develop visual skills through iGym, reading skills, vocabulary skills, comprehension, cognitive skills, etc. Okay, so we'll look at a little bit at the feedback of the boys in a short while, but they enjoyed working on the gamified personal dashboards, and the downloadable worksheets was also utilized by some of them, not all. So what was our roadmap? We did a placement, we played games and did exercises online, so there was no oversight by the teacher. These boys were going on the system on their own, and the teacher was just monitoring their progress via a facilitator dashboard. That makes it possible for us not only to intervene and develop 10 or 80 or 100 kids' skills, but we can work with 1 million kids at once and still see what is happening with each one of those individual kids. And they had to complete their 15 sessions. So let's look at the outcomes. The reading speed of the students increased from 155 to 283 within this course, and that was over a 9-month period. The action, interpret, understand factor from 62 to 112. And the grade level, so these boys experienced, gauging on the norms that we used, they experienced an increase from a grade 5 way of interacting with the visual information that they were working with to a grade 12 way of interacting with the visual information. So this, I think, was just, it's tremendous. So if you look at the cognitive development factor there at the top, you can see it's from 42 to 85 on our norms and standards base. And the reading speed arrangement, VPF, from 108 to 241. So let's look at some of the results. This is the distribution comparison between session 1 and session 15, and you can see the consistency of the distribution there of the population who included before and after participation in iBrain Gym. And then you can here see the polynomial trend lines of the respective populations. Once again, session 1 and session 15. And it's interesting that some of these students improved really a lot and others not, and that would be a good research project to find out exactly why. What was actually going on, why some of these boys were still struggling. And if we look back to what you were talking about, our previous speaker, decoding, and we go back to word recognition, I'm sure we're going to find our answer there very quickly. Okay, so student feedback. Some of them said, I used to struggle with English, I used to get 60, now I get 70. So it also had an impact in their academics. It also had an impact in how they experience they are working. Some of them said, my marks stayed almost the same. Another boy said, geography was less than 50, but now I get 76. So their experience of the system, it was based on what was valuable to them as an individual. Okay, even though we've got the norms and standards, we could see how they experienced. I can read faster, it made my memory clearer, I got more focused. So that was the student feedback. Before I go to the conclusion, let me just stop here for a moment. We had an online discussion with the teacher who was the facilitator for this group of boys, and I wanted to play the video, but I couldn't find it. And he, in the online, it was a Facebook conversation that we had. So, and he's a psychologist, he remarked that when he saw how the boys was improving with the system, he felt it's like almost when you take a group of children and they are going to teach them how to learn to play water polo, but you never teach them how to swim. So that's, I think, in a sense, what we expect sometimes of our kids in the classroom. We want them to play water polo, but we never taught them how to swim. And he said it was really such a incredible moment. He said, and you know where that kid is going to go? To the bottom of the pool. And that's what I experienced. If we can empower our kids and really give them the skills that's needed for them to interact in an efficient way with the curriculum that they've got to study, they're not going to go to the bottom of the pool. They're going to fly. All right, so just in conclusion, did I do well? So just in conclusion, these are what we took. This is the conclusions that we took from our study. Technology will play an increasingly important role in this area of educational development. COVID-19 has, in a sense, highlighted the gaps and challenges that existed. The fourth industrial revolution is placing a higher demand on learning, unlearning and relearning, and now it's more important than it was ever before to help our kids to develop these skills and strategies. All stakeholders in education should pursue access to data, internet and devices for students of all demographics, because this will enable us to help them to leapfrog, even with the learning losses that we have experienced, to still achieve more than what we expect. And that is the great thing about this for me. It went beyond what I expected. But that just shows you the potential, the hidden potential that's in our children, and that we need to help them to develop and to realize. New technology and innovations like iBrain Gym will have the potential to bridge gaps and leapfrog students with the crucial skills that is needed. Okay, let me just go through this. There we go. In time.
But the point I'm trying to make is that there is enough time and space, and any headmaster or teacher that says there isn't, I would love to debate them. There's enough time and space in the timetable in grade 8 and grade 9, certainly, for reading development. There is in grade 10, 11 and 12 if you create the space for it, but certainly the reading development is key. And as I said earlier, it's your primary academic skill. It's more important than any other skill in the school. I've often used the example of the water polo player. So an academic, a person in an academic environment, whether it's school or university, who refuses to work on their reading development and who refuses to improve their reading academic literacy skills is like a water polo player who wants to go to the Olympics but refuses to learn how to swim. So that water polo player is going to go one place, and that's the bottom of the pool. So it's a good, I know it's quite a harsh comparison, but it illustrates the importance of why we need to do this.